On this episode of the iPhoneography podcast, we go over a little bit of news and then we go deep dive into the default camera app with all the different shooting modes and options that's available on the screen so you can get the photo you want.
It's Monday, July 31st, and this is the iPhoneography podcast. I'm Greg McMillan, and this is my good buddy, Dave Podner. Hello, Dave.
Hey, Greg, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. We are enjoying some wonderful weather here.
Excellent.
So, I can't complain. And if I did, nobody would listen anyway. So, how about you? You did a run not too long ago, right?
Not
Wasn't
a
it
race.
like a week or two ago?
I did just. It's more of a training run. Is the reason I posted it.
Okay.
But the races start up for me at least in September.
Oh, okay.
So September's going to be busy.
Yes.
So September running busy and iPhone busy.
Yes, because we are expecting the announcement for the next iPhone. We were just looking at the calendar, and I'm thinking the 12th. That's a Tuesday.
Yeah.
But who knows? I've been really no insight on what day it'll be, but it'll be interesting to see what day it is and what they say about it and what it's gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe as we get a little closer, we can start flying up the old rumor mill again. But I think for now, I think your rumor update, I think was the last show or the show before, was pretty good. Yeah. So
not seeing any major changes or weirdness.
No, I haven't heard anything yet, really.
Except that it's going to, the latest rumor is it's going to get more expensive. Which,
yes, you know what? I did hear that, like by $100 or something.
Yeah, well, $100
for the Pro. That's for the Pro, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, for the Pro. $100 for the regular Pro, and maybe $200 for the Pro Max.
Oh wow!
But it depends.
Come on, Apple.
I know. Well, it also depends on will the regular Pro have the periscope lens, or will that be only the Pro Max?
Yeah, that'll be an interesting thing to see there.
Yeah, so that's something that, of course, Apple could put a periscope in the regular. Well,
sure they
could. The sizes are the same.
All they
the
do
regular
is
Pro
put a little smaller battery in, and it'll be fine.
There's ways around it. They can do their internal Tetris game to get everything packed in there. So it's more of a matter of, for Apple, how many they can, even though I think the Pro is going to be more popular than they think, like it was last time.
Yep.
But it's going to be, how many can they get? How many millions can they guarantee? How much money can they make? What's their revenue margins?
Yeah.
So,
and like we said before, we know they're already in production.
Oh yeah, by now, definitely.
Yeah.
So,
speaking of updates, Speaking of updates, we have a couple of updates to talk about here, real quick. The first one is Spectre. So the makers of Halide brought out Spectre a few years ago, and it was an app that was a camera app that was made to do long exposures handheld. And, it was really good when it came out. Now, I think when Reheld came out, I think it blew Spectre out of the water the way Spectre was. Now, Spectre has updated to also allow for 30-second handheld long exposure shots. I can only say this much right now about the two. One is I tested them both, the same shot at the same, not at the same time, one after the other, obviously.
Right.
And when I did them both for 30 seconds, I held my phone very, very still for both of them. But as the Spectre exposure was building, it was pretty good until about 25 seconds in, and then it started to get blurred. I don't know what happened there. But then, excuse me, when I did Reheld, it stayed tack sharp for the whole thing. So, I'm going to keep testing it when I get a chance, and, when I have a subject that's worthy of it, and just to see how they do compare to each other, in different situations or whatever. The only thing with Spectre is it gives you light trails. You could do light trails with Spectre. You can't do it with Reheld. At least I haven't tried it.
Right.
Technically, it's not made to do light trails. but I think maybe you could do them. I'm gonna test the heck out of these things and see, compare them. But at this point, and it's just my opinion, I think Reheld does a lot better job with the the stacking of the images and aligning them and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not trash talking Spectre. I'm just saying what I've experienced. So have you, do you have Spectre, Dave? Have you tried
I do.
it?
Yeah, no, I do. And I basically, it, for shorter ones, I kind of like, even though I think Reheld's starting to pick up a lot of the things I like about Spectre, including the little icon that jiggles to show you how steady you are.
Right.
I know one thing that Spectre promoted when it first came out was the ability to make people disappear.
Yes.
And I don't know if Reheld can do that, or I haven't tested it. Okay.
Yeah,
so
it's they're very similar in a lot of ways.
Right.
Now under the hood, are they the same? I'm not sure. I tend to think not, because I think Spectre uses AI.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it does. I'm not sure, but I think it does that to control the image stabilization in the camera itself. I'm not sure. I don't know. But I do know about Reheld because I spoke to Salvo and had it on the show about how it works, and it does frame alignment. It uses AI to align the frames. So there could be a difference in how they work, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, I mean, it's a good update for Spectre. The only like, not the only advantage, but another advantage of Reheld over Spectre is that you can choose anywhere from 1 to 30 seconds, whereas with Spectre you're limited to 3, 5, 9, 15, or 30 seconds.
Yeah.
On your exposure times. So, I mean, sure, you could set it to 30 and just tap the shutter button again to stop the exposure anytime you want. But I think it's a little more convenient to do the actual number that you want. But
agreed.
Anyway, so that's
like I said, they are both good though.
Well,
and
sure,
they're both pretty amazing when you think about what they're doing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Who'd have thought we'd ever be able to do a long exposure handheld?
Exactly. Long exposure handheld, even as you want to, because Spectre can do a little bit better pure handheld, as in you're holding up the camera. Where Reheld, it does its best when you actually brace it against something.
You know what? I guess everybody's different, but I have really good luck with it handheld, like without bracing. Maybe it's because I'm holding my breath and turning blue. I don't know, but I don't.
You may have I mean, it depends on how steady of a hand you have too.
Yeah. Who knows?
Or what you're standing on, even.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And again, everybody's different, right? So, but anyway, So that was the one update. The other update is about my book. So here's the deal. I've been very, very patient with the publisher, and they did start doing page layouts and things like that, but they had, they've come across a personal situation, and I'm not going to get too deep into the details of that because it's personal, and I'm just not going to go there. But I thought, you know what? Okay, so I looked at my contract. My contract has a clause in it where if they did not provide a printed book for sale 18 months after they got the finished transcript or whatever, then the publishing rights go back to me. Excuse me. And that time is fast approaching. So I sent them an email and I said, is there, I explained how patient I was, and I with their things that they're dealing with, I've been leaving them alone, not bugging them with emails saying, hey, how's it going? And I basically just said, can we just terminate the contract and I'll just go ahead and do this my way. And the long and short of it is they agreed to that. So the contract is null and void. So now I'm going to self-publish the book, and it's going to be in the Apple bookstore and on Kindle through Amazon. And I mean, it's much simpler for me to put it through the Apple bookstore alone and leave it at that. But I think there's going to be a lot of people that want to see it on their Kindle as well.
Yeah.
So I've got all the specs I need to prepare it and all that stuff. And you know, since I wrote the content basically over 2 years ago, I have some updates to put in. You know, like, you know, when I wrote the original stuff, the 13 Pro came out with its macro feature that all I could do was, you know, guess as to how it was working and all that stuff. Well, now with my new phone, I can
test it.
Yeah, I could test it and take pictures and put them in and all this stuff. So I can update the content so that it will be a little more current and relevant. So that's where it's at. And I'm thinking I could probably have that stuff done and have it published probably within 6 weeks from now.
Oh, wow.
I've gone through most of the chapters already and updated some stuff. I do have, like, I'm working on the biggest chapter that has the most information in it. And, you know, I'll probably read through it again and maybe change some more things, but I want to make sure it's kind of better than it was anyway, before I actually publish it. So, so that's where it's at with the book. So maybe I shouldn't have even mentioned it when I first got this book deal, because I was excited and everything else.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but you figure if someone gets to actual pay you for something, you figure that's the point where something's going to happen. Especially since, you know, this isn't, we actually had an author from another book in this series on the podcast.
Yeah.
So we know they have a history of actually publishing.
Yeah.
So,
but I will say, in their defense, I will say that when the world changed in March of 2020, I know for a fact, because I work in the printing industry, that paper was very difficult to come by.
Yep.
And that market, I think it's recovered, but for a small time publisher, like for a small outfit like these people are, like, you know, they're not like they're not a big company, you know. Right. It's basically 2 to 3 people, whatever it is. It's not good. It wouldn't be easy for those people to get paper and book a printer and all this stuff, right? Because when you'd have to pay the printer when the book's printed, and I know for a fact paper's not cheap, right? And so I can understand that. I totally get that. And I think that's going to, I think that's another good reason to do it digitally, as much as I work in the printing industry and I hate that. But I mean, it's one way to get it out there.
Well, not only that, but you're dealing with something that is iPhone specific. So it kind of makes sense, because I don't know, but I don't see a lot of people taking a physical book with them somewhere.
Yeah.
But you could easily think, oh, I'm out going to, let me refresh myself on chapter 5, bring it up on, you know, Kindle or iBooks or Apple Books, and say, okay, there it is. Highlight it. I can highlight it here. I can put a little note in here just so I remember, that kind of thing.
Yeah. 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 There's definitely advantages to putting it out digitally. So, but anyway, I just wanted to put that update out there, and I'm sure people were wondering about it and wondering if that was even ever going to happen. I was beginning to wonder that myself, but I knew it was a matter of time before this contract would expire. But luckily, I got it done earlier than expected. So it's coming. It's coming. So anyway, okay. So moving on to the show. This is the fourth part in our series about improving your iPhone photography.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is probably going to be the most iPhone specific one because it's all about the Apple camera app. So again, I'll remind everybody that I got this outline from ChatGPT, and tonight's outline, I did make some changes in it, just because there was one section of it that could be done on an episode of itself. So I took that one out, but I also added some stuff in. But basically, it says so. ChatGPT started the outline by saying, exploring the various camera features of your iPhone can greatly enhance your photography. Here are some steps to help you explore and utilize the iPhone camera features effectively. So the first one says, familiarize yourself with the camera app. Start by understanding the basic functions and features of the default camera app on your iPhone. Learn how to switch between different shooting modes such as photo, portrait, panorama, and video. Explore the settings and options available, such as grid lines, timer, flash, and live photos. So this, this basically, the next 2 points are going to be kind of covered here with that last sentence by exploring the different settings and options. So, Dave, you want to start with point number 2, since point number 1 was basically familiarize yourself, and
right.
That's what this is all about. So I'll let you start with point number 2.
Sure.
And part A, I guess you could say.
Okay, yeah, that's why I wanted to double check, because there's multiple parts here. So we'll just start on part A here then.
Mm-hmm.
Starting with portrait mode, which is something it says here, portrait mode. Utilize portrait mode to capture stunning depth of field photos with blurred background, also known as bokeh. This mode is particularly effective for portraits and can create professional looking images. And right now, I know there's a couple people who were on Tiny Shutter with us who are probably screaming at that sentence about professional looking images.
Yeah,
but we'll say this: portrait mode for me, and it's been around a while. I think people forget how long portrait mode's been around. Is that this is something that can really wow family and friends.
Oh yeah.
But being gentle with it. And this is one advantage with the newer phones where you can actually adjust the amount of bokeh behind somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So you can make it look completely abstract, like you're standing in front of a stained glass window almost, or a block, or like a glass block window where it's all kind of blurry. And then there are one where it's just a light little bit of blurry, where you can still you can still see what's behind you.
Yeah, it's like changing the aperture on a traditional camera lens. That's what it's like. Yeah,
exactly. So doing that, because I remember the first time I shot, it was at a family gathering. I took a picture of someone, portrait mode, iPhone 10, I want to say, maybe even earlier.
Well, it came out with the 7 Plus, I think.
Okay, so I'm trying to think, that was it the camera, was the phone before. Time kind of becomes an artificial construct over the last couple of years after all. But it's been a while. Let's just say it's been a while. So, and I remember I took a picture, portrait mode. Back then you were just stuck with the one aperture size. And I showed a picture and they were like, oh my God, that's amazing. Send that to me, please.
Yeah.
Because it just works so good with portraits. It literally, and this is one advantage of if you are stuck, I hate to say the word stuck, with like the SE, where it does portrait mode with one lens, but it has to be a person, versus the non-SE, where you can do it with anything because it has the 2 lenses and the way Apple uses it.
I think they updated that.
Did they update it?
I think they did. I could be wrong, but I think they updated that to include, anything, pets, whatever.
Okay.
That was obviously a software update.
Right. But it still doesn't work as well as the one with 2 lenses or 3 lenses per se.
Yeah.
And it is great. And for what you're making out of, and the fact that you can make adjustments after the fact, And that is one thing. After you take the photo, you can change the lighting on it down below. So you can keep it natural, or you can put it studio light, as they call it, which brightens the subject a little bit.
Yeah.
Makes a little bit, you can make it where it's blacked out background, all you see, or white out background now.
And that's a black and white though.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The different lighting conditions available in portrait mode are really cool. Now, if I was to give a tip on shooting a portrait mode image, I would say, keep the subject a little further away from anything behind, so that it really, the segmentation mask has a better chance to work, and isolate the subject. And also, the more still a person is, the better it's going to be. I don't know if you found that, Dave, but I found it with even, like, I've shot flowers in portrait mode, and if there's a slight breeze, sometimes the stem will disappear. But if it's perfectly still, you got a better chance. It may still not be perfect, but you have a better chance at getting everything that you want in the in the portrait mode aspect of it. But
and the other suggestion I would give is, if you do have a pro model, because you can go between 1x and either, I guess, 2.5 for the iPhone 12, or for the 13, 14, you can do a 3x. See, admittedly, if you do a 3x, you're going to really have to walk yourself back from the subject because it zooms in. But do both, because it will give you a different feel. Because the 3x is closer to, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's closer to a traditional 35 millimeter equivalent size, I think, because it's 55 millimeter iPhone, which is closer to 35 millimeter, I think, camera. So it may make people feel more comfortable with that photo because your focal length is different.
Yeah. With the 14 Pro, you can actually do 1 times, 2 times, and 3 times, which I find interesting.
48 megapixel.
No, I don't think it does 48 megapixel, but you can do. So I'm in portrait mode, and in the bottom left, there's a 2x. Well, I hit that, it opens up and the options are 1x, 2x, or 3x. So I think it does the 1 and the 2 just because of the large sensor.
Well, that's why I meant by 48 megapixel. I'm sorry.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, because it is 48 megapixel, gives you that 2x ability.
Yeah.
Without interpolation.
Yeah. So I mean, that's pretty cool. But even without that third choice, I think portrait mode works really well. Yeah. Like I really enjoyed it when I had my 12 Pro Max. I remember just vividly taking a portrait mode shot of my niece. It was Thanksgiving at my parents' place, and the sun was setting, and her face was lit up right halfway across the face. So half was in shadow and half was bathed in just beautifully golden light. And it was just a wonderful portrait. And I should say, folks, we're not going to have any images to show for this episode, because all this stuff is, I think we can kind of explain it without having to put pictures on the screen. It would be kind of hard to, I think, come up with all these different pictures to put on the screen. So that's why there won't be any. But anyway, so that's, and
before we move off, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would say, before we move off of portrait mode, let's say you take a portrait mode shot, and for whatever reason, the masking doesn't look good.
Yeah.
It's cutting off an ear or glasses, or the breeze is going a little bit, but you still like the shot overall. You like the composition, you like the lighting. It's just you can turn in the edit, you can just click where it says portrait, and it gets rid of the portrait mode effect.
Yes, that's right.
And just makes it a regular photo. So if you're like, I love the shot, the portrait mode had issues with this, or the lighting, or this, or who knows what, it's the portrait mode part, that the computational portrait mode, that had the issue, but the shot's great. You can get rid of the portrait mode. and just make it a regular flat photo. It won't be live, but it's just a regular flat photo.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good tip. So yeah, I don't know what else we could say about portrait mode other than it's really good and it's really fun to play around with. So next is panorama mode. It says here, try the panorama mode to capture wide-angle shots of landscapes and large scenes. Follow the on-screen instructions to keep the camera steady as you move across the scene. So panorama mode is really cool. I'm not sure when this part started, but you could use the different cameras to get a different kind of panoramic shot. So you can use on the 14. I'll speak for the 14 Pro. You could probably tell me better too, Dave. With the 13 Pro, is you could use ultra wide or the main camera or the telephoto. You can do so it just changes the view that you get. And the idea is if you got if you're say your wide angle, your ultra wide isn't wide enough to get everything in the shot, you can turn on portrait mode and you could do almost 180 degrees from start to finish. I'm not sure what the angle is that you can achieve with that, but you basically see a line that goes through the center of the screen, and there's an arrow at the one side. Now you can tap the arrow and it'll hop to the other side depending on which way you want to go with this. But then you just hit the shutter button and slowly move the phone across the scene, keeping the arrow right on the line. And when you're done, you can just there was a little shortcut that I heard about. I think, how does that work? I think you can tap the arrow and it'll stop the exposure, or you can just tap the shutter button. I'm not sure which it is.
I haven't tried that, but I know if you tap the arrow before you start, you can change direction.
Yeah. I'm just going to try it real quick here, just for the giggles and see what it does.
Now, one thing I'll mention about panorama is that one thing to remember is it will make your photo narrower than what you're seeing. So to make sure that everything's as stitched as well as it can be, first of all, take your time. Just don't zoom pan across.
Yeah. It'll tell you to slow down.
Yeah, but it'll crop off some of the top and some of the bottom. So you will have a wide, narrow shot. So that's where the half side, the ultra wide can help, because you can make sure that because it's going to crop. So if you're like, this looks like a great panoramic shot, or I want to there's a at the wedding that we had recently for my nephew, there was a long cookie table. Well, it was so wide, it was so long. Even the ultra wide horizontally, even the wide shot wasn't enough. You had to do like a panoramic and walk.
That's my kind of cookie table.
It was mammoth. It was mammoth. But the thing is, you just don't want to say, well, I'm just going to focus so I get enough in the photo as I'm taking it. That won't work because it's going to crop it down.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you maybe get back a little bit more. It's almost like you're going to take a picture and you have to keep in mind the top and bottom inch are just waste. It's going to go away.
Oh, yeah.
So it's something you have to plan ahead of time.
Yeah. And you can also use portrait mode vertically. If you got a real tall building or a tall tree or something like that, you can start, say, at the bottom and work your way up and then just stop it when you get past the top. Make sure you get it all in, because you can always crop a little bit later if you need to.
Yeah.
But that's another option, is a vertical panorama.
Yeah.
It's great for tight spots when you're you just can't get everything in the camera. Even the ultra wide, as good as it is, if you can't get the whole building in or whatever, it almost helps it be like a fisheye, but without all that distortion. Like there is some distortion, but it works best on, nice wide landscape scenes, I think. Yeah. But, don't be afraid to try it even close up stuff, like if you're close to a car, let's say, and you want to get the whole car in the shot, but it's too big for a regular shot, do a panel. Bob's your uncle. Away you go.
And one thing to remember is that you can, even if you're using the ultra wide, if you're up close with an ultra wide, you have angle issues.
Yeah.
Just think about from where your camera is to what it like. If you can get the whole car in there with the ultra wide, you have a wide angle between each bit of the car. That will mess up your perspective.
Oh yeah.
Going back to art class, and when people use this, here's a road and make your little, trailing lines. You're like, okay, that's pretty well. But if you use a pano and you kind of walk along with it, you don't have those wide lines, so you won't have as much distortion you have to worry about.
Yeah. And the last tip, I think, before we move on to the next one is, here's a really good thing to do, and that is to tap and hold the screen to lock your exposure. Because if you're going across a scene where, you have clouds or in one part and blue sky in another, it's always going to try to adjust the exposure. But if you lock the exposure for the whole thing, then it makes it look the way it actually was. It doesn't try to adjust and compensate. Right. So
big difference.
Yeah. So next we have time-lapse mode.
Yeah. And use time-lapse mode to create captivating videos that condense long periods into shorter sequences. This is great for sunsets, cityscapes, or movement of clouds. And I'll also add, kind of in addition to clouds, when storms are coming in.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
If you can get it where you can see a storm coming in and you can see the clouds, the dark clouds rolling in, and see the rain rolling in, that's a great thing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
There are limitations we need to talk about, though. You are, I think it's 30 seconds. If I'm
30 to 40, I think. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how long you take that video, it's going to come out the same distance. So it just takes more, so it all kind of condenses.
Well, what it actually does is the longer you shoot, it'll start dropping frames to get the final video down to that time frame.
Right.
So that's how it works. And for a certain length of time, it'll keep every frame. And then beyond that, it starts dropping frames. And then after so much time, it'll start dropping more frames at a faster rate type of thing. So if you let it go for like 3 hours, which you can do, you're going to get, as your final video, your say 40 seconds or whatever the maximum is, near the end of that, it's going to be chopped up even more because it's going to drop frames faster as it goes. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, but it is pretty good. Like you said, it's great for a storm moving in. I remember when I had my 4S, I did a time lapse of the fireworks display in town here for Canada Day. And it was about a 20-minute, back then, though, you know what? Back then, it was a 20-minute display and the video came out to over 3 minutes. So I think they've changed the way it works over time, obviously, because...
Yeah. Well, I think they changed it also because of the resolution.
Yes. Yeah, because that was only 8 megapixel. Yeah.
Remember is that time-lapse is a video. It's not a photo. So, like you said, it's taking every, and I just checked it here, 40 seconds is the max it'll let you do, no matter how long your video. So I did do one that was like 2 hours long, and it was still 40 seconds.
Yeah.
So you saw a lot of movement because it wasn't a picture every 1 or 2 seconds. It was a picture every 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Because of the length. Yeah. But it can also, like I said, it's great for things moving around and things that move, I would say, slowly. Because if things move too quickly, like traffic or people, it's going to look choppy. It's going to look choppy. Yeah. That's why clouds, a cityscape with the sky, sunsets, things that I would say it's hard to pick up movement with the bare eye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know sometimes you can see clouds rolling in with the big storm or things moving. Most of the time you look at a cloud, you have to kind of focus to see exactly where it's moving.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're moving slowly. And that's perfect for time lapse.
Yeah.
I made one. I made one recently. I posted it to Instagram as a reel and a TikTok of. Admittedly, this is the way I handled it. Was I opened up my window, I pushed the screen up, I put the phone in, and I closed the window on the phone so it would act like as a tripod.
Oh yeah.
I shut the drapes to make sure the cats wouldn't get curious, and I let it go for like a half an hour. Make sure you have enough battery charge before you get started on that.
Yes, that's another good point too.
Because since you are videoing and processing, it's going to start. So if your battery life is under 50%, charge it up first.
Yeah,
you don't want to lose it halfway through.
Yeah,
but you can get some beautiful, beautiful shots. And one thing that also I want to mention is if you go to your Photos app and hit the albums, and scroll down, you can see time lapse right there.
Yeah.
So like I have 11 time lapse. So it will get, and same thing with portrait. It will tell, it has media types: portrait, panoramas, time lapse, cinematic, burst, screenshots. Okay, Ruth is busy.
Yeah. It's
live
nice
photos.
It's nice that it puts them all in their own albums like that, so you can easily get to them. So, yeah. So next is slow motion mode. Explore the slow motion mode to capture dramatic and detailed slow motion videos. It's ideal for action shots, sports, or any fast-paced subject. So this is basically the opposite of what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And you sent me a really cute video that I wish we could put video up on this, because it was so cute. It was your dogs, and you were throwing them a little treat, but it was in slow motion, and it is so cute to watch.
That's another one I posted too. So if you check out my social medias, they will be there. Basically, they're little bits of apple.
Oh, okay.
They love apples. They love apples. And just little hunks of apple. And the nice thing is it changes the focus, because I hold it up to the camera. It'll focus on what it is. And then as I'm throwing it, it focuses on the dog. And you can see you can also see at the very end the disappointment, as it's like, oh, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So slow-mo works great for things like that with your pets, or
running on the beach.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For us old people with throwbacks to syndicated TV from the US.
Yeah. Also known as Baywatch. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of things you can do with slow motion. I mean,
good lighting is key, though.
Yes, because definitely have good lighting.
There are different options for slow motion that this is something I wish Apple would fix. Shaking my fist at Apple. The option to correct to change your slow motion settings is not in the camera; it's in the settings.
Yeah.
It should be in the camera. I should not have to go to settings to change my slow motion or any video or anything else. It should be in the camera setting. Just make it easy on people. But at least I have two options. You may have a different one. 1080p at either 120 or 240.
HD at 200 or 120. Yeah.
Yeah, 120 or 240.
Now you can change that in the top corner of the viewfinder. Just tap on the 120.
Okay, give me a second. I just want to make sure that is also. I do see that. Yes. Okay, good. Yeah, that's that. Now, if you have a 12 or an 11, you may not have that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't, because at one time you couldn't. But yes, I see that on mine too. Thanks for pointing that out. If you notice that your video is dark, because before you even take a picture, it'll show you kind of the exposure.
The preview.
If you notice, in the preview, if you notice it's dark, change it from 240 to 120. 120 is a little better for not great lighting conditions. If it's bright and sunny, use the 240, you'll get really slow. You know, but if it's like, you're inside, or, you know, your lighting's not as good, bump it down to 120. It'll handle a lot better.
Yeah, that's a good point. And where slow motion is also really handy is when you're filmmaking. Like if you're making, you know, like a home movie or a short film of some sort, like if you're making them like a little miniature movie or whatever, don't be afraid that if like Dave says, the light's really good, don't be afraid to shoot it in slow-mo, because you can, you know, in your editing app for movies, like whether it's Final Cut or iMovie or whatever, when you have that kind of footage, you can slow it down, or you could speed it up rather, to, you know, 60 frames per second or whatever the frame rate of your movie is, and it'll be nice and smooth. It'll be very smooth video. So, you know, that's something to consider too. It's slow mo. Yeah. I don't think I thought for a second maybe it was time lapse, but no, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely consider that when filmmaking, you know, for certain sequences where you may want to adjust the speed of the footage. You can never go wrong as long as you got ample light, filming it in slow motion to change the frame rate.
Now, so you can, before we move on, now the nice thing is when you edit in slow motion, you can select not only how long the video is, but where the slow motion starts and ends.
Oh yeah.
So when you can start photos, so you can start it in regular speed, and then so if you're like, oh, I took this video, but the part I want in slow motion, you know, the highlight part happens 20 seconds in, and I don't want to have that extra 15 seconds of no problem. You can just, when you go to edit, you can see where slow motion and not slow motion. You can move it over and then crop it, so it's a lot better. The other thing that as a heads up, slow motion, because a lot of people have the compact fluorescent light or LED lights, it will pick up the flashing of the light bulbs.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're doing a slow motion shot and all of a sudden you see like a flicker. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're at 240, you can try shooting at 120 and see if that makes a difference, I guess. But that's a good point too, is the refresh rate of these LED lights. Yeah,
LEDs or the compact fluorescent, either way. And because it's almost impossible to buy a incandescent light anymore.
Yeah, pretty much.
So just something else to think. Like outdoor light's great. I used it for my great nephew's birthday earlier this year. They had a piñata.
Oh yeah,
slow motion was great for that.
Yeah, it would
use the slow motion of the swing, and when it hits it, and the things start, and the kids all coming in one. The other thing with slow motion is the audio will be slow motion.
Oh yes, that's right.
So as let's say kids jumping, you'll hear.
Yeah. Yeah, you may want to take it into iMovie or something like that and just put it to music.
yeah. Or if you want to have make it feel like a horror movie, that's great too, but it will definitely sound off.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so Dave, next is burst mode.
Sure. Slide the shutter button to the left or towards the preview thumbnail and hold it to take a burst of photos and then release a stop. You can also use the volume up button on the side for the iPhone. Just go to settings, camera, and turn on volume up for burst. So burst mode, if let's say you don't want to use live photos, burst mode is great for having that still action shot.
Yeah.
Because if some action's happening, you don't know which shot's going to be good.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and you really can't, it's really hard to time it just right. But if you take 200 photos, one of those will be good. And the difference between that and live, you'll get more photos because live's only 3 seconds. You'll have more photos and they may be crisper.
Yeah,
than
because
trying to
it's going to
live.
use a pretty fast shutter speed.
Exactly. So
and it maxes out at 600 frames.
okay.
So that gives you plenty of time, and it most likely will be 10 frames per second, unless the lighting is not as bright and it needs to take a little, and I'm talking microseconds here to develop. But a good tip that I heard from Austin Mann was, let's just say there's a bird on the bird feeder and you want to get it flying away, sit there and hold it on burst mode all the time he's sitting there. And if he flies away, you're going to get the shot. If you wait until you think it's going to fly away, by the time you slide your finger down to start the burst, it's going to be gone. So don't be afraid. I mean, hey, you can always delete them. If you do a burst that maxes out at 600 and the bird hasn't flown anywhere yet, you can go in and delete that. It doesn't matter. Yeah. But at least while you're holding it, you're going to get the shot. And this works great for kids, pets. A bicycle, somebody on a bicycle riding by. You can just do a burst mode and select the best frame. Yeah. And to select the best frame, you go into edit and it'll say how many frames are in the burst in the top left-hand corner. And of before you hit edit, it'll tell you how many things are there. And then when you hit edit, you'll see all the bursts, all the frames of the burst along the bottom, and it'll pick what it thinks is the best one. And that's the one you see in the image preview when you're looking at it. But when you go into the edit, or no, actually, you don't even have to be in edit. You can just hit select at the bottom of the screen, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you can select the best one
multiple.
Yeah, you can select more than one. And then it will, if you select more than one, what it'll do is it'll create new images, I guess you could say. If you select just one that's different than the rest, when you hit done, it'll ask you, do you want to keep everything or just keep that one that you picked? And if you're happy with the one that you picked, you can just dump the rest and get your storage back.
Yeah.
Now burst mode is awesome.
Yeah. Now, one thing I have seen on Instagram are people doing sport. I don't want to say sport action shots, but I'm trying to think of the idea here. They're action shots which are staged.
Okay.
So you have the thing where you see like the kid hitting the baseball, but the baseball soaking wet. So as they're hitting it, you can see like the water coming off, or like it's covered in talcum powder. So they're hitting the baseball and they take a picture just a second after it's hit, and the talcum powder makes a like a streak.
Oh yeah.
Or you have things where people are like, doing like dunking on somebody, but it's a stage shot.
Yeah.
And this is something where burst mode would be helpful, because the way they're doing it, because you see all the behind the scenes of what they're doing, which is neat to see, but you can see they're doing a timed flash where they're timing the flash and the shutter at the same time.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to do that with your iPhone, there are ways to do that, I'm sure, but probably the easiest way is burst mode.
Oh, yeah.
You just get someone started off. You say, okay, do this. You start doing it burst mode. They do whatever. You pick the photo you want. Then you can throw it into an editor and darken the background, let's say.
And at 10 frames per second, you're bound to get the shot.
You're a good chance of hitting something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because a lot of those shots, if you look at them, they're like a lot of that skill of the photographer, not of the equipment.
Yeah.
And it may actually be easier to do it on something like an iPhone, where you can get closer than you can with a traditional, DSLR, where it's a big camera. And then you see the photo they take, then they show you the edited photo.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they're doing the photo inside of a gymnasium somewhere. But after the shot's done, because they darken the background so much, and because of the flash, the person's so bright, but it's not like you can tell off camera flash with the big, nice diffuse flash looks a lot better than an iPhone flash, obviously. But you can see like they're lit up and what's around is like, and I look at them like, I can do something similar with a shot, and then I could throw it into Lightroom Mobile or use kind of maybe some of the built-in editing tools and get 90% of the way there. So if you have a kid or something that you want to have like a glamour shot, a glamour action shot, that's a way to try it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You just have to get creative with setting up the shot. I saw one person, it was a picture from behind a baseball player and someone who was kind of off camera, or no, it was a player. They put a bunch of dirt in their hand, threw up the dirt, and was out there with their hands spread open. But it looked like you just see this poof of dirt behind them, and then they took photo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you could do something like that with an iPhone, do some editing, and get that glamour shot. If you want to do something special for someone beyond, Yeah.
Yeah. There's many uses for burst mode for sure. So next is exploring the features. So explore the features listed across the bottom of the viewfinder. You can access them by tapping the arrow at the top of the screen. So when you're looking in your camera app, the viewfinder at the top, there's a little arrow. Some people call it a caret or whatever, but if you tap that arrow, this little menu comes up at the bottom of the screen, of the bottom of the viewfinder, but above the shutter button. And you could also get there by just swiping up on the screen a little bit, and it'll show up as well. Let me just get there. So I'm in the photo section of the app. So if you just swipe up on the screen, these little icons appear. So the first one is flash, and when you tap on these things, they show you the options for each one. So you got flash, and you got your choice of auto, on or off. I personally leave mine off all the time. I just don't. I'm more of a available light kind of guy, but and then you got night mode. When you tap on night mode, you can set the length of time for the shot. So you tap night mode, and a little scale comes up. And if you're handheld, the maximum you can get, depending how dark it is 10 seconds. But if you put it on a tripod, you got 30 seconds. And then you've got now live photos on, Dave. That's one of your favorites, isn't it?
Right. And that's something I use more than that's something I just consistently use, to be honest. And honestly, just because it can cover a lot of mistakes or a lot of little movement.
Yeah. If you got your dogs are doing something
exactly
cute, you could pick your key photo. So photographic styles is next, and this is only shown when RAW is turned off. If you turn RAW on, you can't do the photographic styles. Now, I don't play around with this too much, but you have different choices, and what it does is it's kind of like a LUT or a preset to change how the photo is going to look. And you've got standard, which is nothing's changed. It's just the way the camera works. Then you've got rich contrast, you got vibrant, warm, and cool. And these, other than standard, all the other ones are customizable. You can move the it's, let's see now, there's a warm, I think is warm that you can, I'm going to go right into it and check here. Okay, so, the tone and the warmth of each one can be adjusted. Now, they're preset at certain things, but you can adjust them to suit your style with what you're shooting at the time. And it just shoots the image that way. Now, I've changed the one that says cool. I don't like the the cool tone of it. So I changed it to, and I renamed it to Rich Warm. So I've obviously warmed it up a bit and changed the tone to, I forget, I've saw somebody on a YouTube video do that, and I really like the look of it. So sometimes I'll turn on that photographic style. And there's you can access the photographic styles in the camera settings when you go to settings and then camera. You got your format and all that stuff, but further down the screen is photographic styles. When you tap that, basically you're getting the same thing that you would see in the camera app itself. So you got your choices there, and I think you can make adjustment as well. Then you got aspect ratio. You got 4:3, which is the native aspect ratio of the camera. And then you got square, or another one of Dave's favorites, 16:9.
Right. And that way you can, now the nice thing is when you shoot it in this, you can adjust the aspect after the fact. So it doesn't only take a 16:9. It actually takes a 4:3 and then crops it as you're taking it to 16:9. But if there were things above and below, you can actually get them back.
Yeah.
Which is a nice thing. To do.
Yeah. Then you got exposure compensation. So you can, and this is kind of the same as when you tap and hold or tap the screen, then you slide your finger up and down, you can make it brighter or darker. This just takes a little more, I want not really professional approach to it, but it actually shows you the EV value. So you can go to plus or minus 2 on the exposure compensation. It's basically the same thing, but it actually shows you a number to give you an idea of where you are on the scale. Whereas if you just slid your finger up and down on the screen to brighten it or darken it, you really don't know where you are. And with the exposure compensation, there's a scale up in the top left, somewhere in that corner up there, that has an indicator showing where that scale is. So it's a good tool to have too. And I find a lot of times I'm bringing the exposure down, maybe not even a full down one whole point, but just down to like 0.7 or whatever.
Right.
Just so you don't overexpose the highlights.
Now, one nice thing is if you go so far down, let's say, it will turn on night mode for you.
Oh yeah.
So if you turn down because I'm playing with it now, and actually it reminds me of what you would see like on a standalone camera, the same kind of a symbol you would see up there for exposure. And if you go too far, I noticed that, it's like, by the way, I'm putting you in night mode because you're so dark right now.
Yeah, see, mine didn't do that. I'm wondering if it's
well, your room is significantly lighter than my room.
Yeah, maybe that's why.
I can tell because I'm actually pointed down with the light behind me, so it's already in shade.
Yeah, okay.
And you have an all white room where mine is off white.
Yeah. Yeah, I can point it under my desk and it's still not going to night mode. That could be because the 14 Pro,
it can go better before it hits night.
Yeah, like it could go, like it's capable of a lot higher ISO.
Yeah.
So that's probably the difference. But so then after that we've got self timer. So pretty simple, off 3 seconds or 10 seconds. And I believe if you go ahead.
Let's say a great thing for selfies.
Oh yeah.
If you're taking a selfie, I know people make fun of selfies, but people still like to, hey, it's like, there is a monument that I went to see. And you're like, I want to get I want to get me in front of the monument, or me in front of something, or me in front of a building or whatever to show, how many times in the past you see, we went on vacation. Where are you out? I was behind the camera.
Yeah.
You never saw a picture. You see a picture of buildings and this, but you never see a picture of the people. So if you want to do a selfie, put it on 3 seconds. You can hit the button. It gives you time to hold it up, kind of adjust your arm so it doesn't look like you're holding it up, or adjust your gaze and take a picture that way.
And the thing is, when you do with the self timer, it takes a burst of 10 images, which is pretty good, because if if you're taking like you say a selfie or a group photo of a bunch of people, if somebody blinks, well, you could probably select another frame where there's nobody blinking or something.
Right.
So there's a lot of advantages to using that self timer for sure. Filters. Now you've got original and vivid. And vivid will also have a warm and a cool version. Dramatic, also a warm and cool version of that one. And then you've got 3 black and white versions, which is mono, silvertone, and noir. Mono is pretty much a straight black and white. Silvertone has just a slight tinge of a bluish tone to it.
And darker.
And a little darker,
darker and a little more contrast.
Yeah. And noir is no bluish tone to it, but a lot more contrast as well.
Yeah.
Now these are also available in the editing part of photos. Like when you're editing a photo, down at the bottom, you can select these filters, so you can actually put them on after the fact, or take the photo with that filter applied. And when you edit it, you can remove the filter if you don't like it. So that's a pretty cool thing. Then you got Pro RAW. So if you have a Pro iPhone and this is turned on, and you go to camera settings, formats, and then that's where you could turn on Pro RAW, or you can turn it off. And then with the 14 Pros, you can have it set to shoot either 12 or 48 megapixels. And I shoot Pro RAW just about all the time, to be honest with you. It's not very often that I turn that off. Now, I mean, having said that, I don't use the Apple camera all the time either. I use Reflex, but it has the capability to shoot Pro RAW. But there are times when I do use the Apple camera app, and the first thing I'll do is I'll check to see if Pro RAW is on or off. If I'm using the photographic styles, I can't use RAW, but I get that. But now, because you're shooting live photos, probably 99% of the time you won't be using Pro RAW.
Right. And most of the time I don't.
Yeah.
Most of the time I don't. Most of the time unless it's going to be a challenging situation where I want the extra editing ability of RAW, I normally do not shoot in Pro RAW.
Yeah.
Also, it's partially where you come from, if you will. If you come from, let's say you're used to using a DSLR or an SLR, and you're used to RAW, and that was how you learn photography.
Yeah.
You may be more on the Pro RAW side, or even just a straight RAW side, versus I came from, I don't even want to call them point and shoots. I learned photography on a 110 camera and a disc camera. Kids, check Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Okay. So the fact of, I can make this adjustment, I can do this, and I can do this, and I no, mine was, you pick up the camera, you may be able to put an additional flash on it or turn the flash on, take your photo, and then have your film developed, and then wait a week to drive up to the little man or woman in the little thing in the middle of the parking lot and pick it up a week later and hope it turns out good.
Yeah, exactly.
But try it. I mean, like I said, literally the worst thing that could happen. Pro RAW, of course, this is something we've talked about when Pro RAW was released. Pro RAW is not truly RAW.
No, it's not.
Because it does have the Apple magic kind of dusted. Because if you take a regular RAW photo, it's going to look like crap.
Pretty much.
I mean, a straight RAW.
It won't have the dynamic range that the Apple secret sauce gives it. Exactly. And that secret sauce is basically it's HDR, smart HDR. What's the other one? Oh gosh, night mode. I guess could be. You can shoot a Pro RAW image with night mode.
Yeah, and I do that occasionally also.
Yeah. And there's, it's right at the tip of my tongue. Anyway, it's that there's three things basically, aside from Night Raw that it does, deep fusion. That's what I was thinking of. So it adds these things in, and the intent of it was to give you a head start on your editing, give you something really good to work with, but also the freedom of changing the white balance and things like that you can't change in a non-raw image. So the last thing on this list is, now if you use iCloud Photos, you can have two different types of library. You can have personal, which is basically your regular iPhone library, and you can have shared photos library. And this is new. This was new in iOS 16, and so that means anybody that's say if you have a family setting, like for my iCloud account, I've got my wife on there, and I've got my son and his wife on there, and I've got a shared photo library where if I put images in there, they can see them and they can edit them and they can do all this and that, but it's reflected back to me as well. Like if somebody else edits a photo, it's edited on my phone too. So that's a nice thing about shared photos library, but it's one of those things where I think it's only part of iCloud Plus. I'm not sure. And you want to have more than just the free 5 gigabytes of iCloud storage, or for the photos. But it's pretty cool. And I just gotta let the dog out.
Oh,
I'm letting the dogs out again. There you go. Hey. It gets a little warm and stuffy in this room sometimes.
I can imagine. Yeah.
But anyway, so that's the final button on that row across. If you have, if you're using the shared photos library, if you have that activated, it'll be there. But if not, then I imagine there won't be any button at all, because
I don't have it turned on, and it's not even there as an option.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Well, the next part is getting creative with filters. We basically just talked about this.
We went over a lot of this and photographic styles.
Yeah. So there's not much point in kind of going over it again. But
I would say the one advantage of using the built-in filters and styles, if you're going in and you want a particular look to the photos you're going to take, you can set that up beforehand.
Yeah.
So they come out with a look.
Yeah.
Like I just was playing a little bit with the photographic styles and filters, and the way the photo came out, it had a certain look to it. And if I was to say, I'm going to take everything having the same look, the same feel, set it up ahead of time. That way it saves you on the back end.
Yeah. Like that rich, warm photographic style that I created, I use that in the autumn, and it really makes the autumn colors pop. So that's pretty cool. So we won't go through that whole section again, but the next one is utilize HDR, or high dynamic range, and I think we talked about this. Did we not talk about this in the last show?
We did, with exposure. We kind of went over that. So.
Yeah, so that's another one that we could probably skip. So if you want to know more about HDR, go back to the last episode. So night mode, Dave.
Yes, night mode. If you have an iPhone model with night mode, experiment with this in low light situations. It can use advanced algorithms and extended exposure time to create brighter, more detailed photo in challenging lighting conditions. Keep the camera steady or use a tripod. So this is one where this will not use for action shots.
No.
In fact, any kind of jiggle will kind of mess up the shot, because it does not take if you use a tripod, you can get 30-second, quote unquote, a 30-second shot, but it's not really taking a 30-second shot. It's taking multiple shots over that 30 seconds stacking it up using the algorithm behind the scenes. You want to call it machine learning, you want to call it AI, whatever, to get a shot out. Because it does use stacking. The 30-second shots at night, especially if you're taking astrophotography, you will see movement and low blurriness in the stars.
Yeah.
And that is a negative, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's not like the Google Pixel. It takes like over 4 minutes to do a night shot like that. Yeah. But what it does is it does a lot better a job at aligning the images so that the stars are sharper. Right. I am not saying go buy a Google Pixel, but if you want to, go ahead. But I've done a few shots with the Milky Way galaxy, and they turned out pretty good. They do require editing afterwards. A regular night shot of a city street, not so much. You can edit anything you want, but it doesn't. In some cases, it doesn't really need it. It does a really good job. Well, I remember when I first got my 12 Pro Max, I was downtown in the city I live in, and there was an alleyway, and I could not see anything down this alleyway beyond about 20 or 30 feet. I had no idea what was down there. I held my phone up and I took a night mode shot. I think it was about 10 seconds. And wow, I could see there was a car down there. I could see there was these stairs going up the back of a building. There was a garbage dumpster thing there. I mean, I couldn't believe what this thing was picking up that my eyes couldn't see. So that's one of the amazing things about night mode. Yeah. And sometimes it can be a little too bright, but I mean, you could still adjust the exposure.
You can still make adjustments, and sure. Correct for it there. But the other thing night mode is really good for is it's almost good for night vision. I have used, and it doesn't turn out with the greatest photos, but there are times when the dogs are barking at something on the back hill.
Oh yeah.
The back hill is not that we don't have lights on the back hill. However, if I go out, I either handheld or I put because we have a covered patio. If I put it on one of the pillars for the roof on the patio and just take a photo, it'll turn out light enough that I can see if there's a bunny rabbit, which occasionally there is halfway up the hill that I can't see. Dogs can see and they're going crazy. So I can definitely see what's happening. Or, if you're in a, like you said about not using flash, if you're in a restaurant and it's not a very brightly lit restaurant, which it seems like most restaurants are no longer brightly lit, it's kind of hard to see anyway. You can use night mode to get a really nice photo without having to use flash. Since you're not using flash, it keeps the natural color a lot better. Yeah.
I had something I was going to say and I forget what it was now. Oh no, that's okay. It escaped me. But anyway, so night mode. I want this thing to come back in my mind, but it's not coming. Night mode is really good. And you know what? I've found that it does a really good job of the white balance. Like if you have like a city street, and say you've got a building with different kinds of light, like say you've got fluorescent lights in the building and you've got tungsten lights in the street lights or whatever the case is, I find it does a really good job of getting the correct white balance for each light source so that it looks really natural. That amazes me that it can do that. And I guess that's where they say it does pixel by pixel processing and all this stuff. And, I know what I was going to say too. I'm not sure about the 13 Pro, Dave. You can verify this, but you can do night mode portrait mode in night mode. Yeah.
And especially with the pros, because they have the LiDAR, it does a much better job because the LiDAR will actually help you do portrait modes at night.
Yeah. So I think that's really cool. Not that I don't think I've ever done one, but it's nice to know that it's there.
Oh no, I've done one in a like in a restaurant,
mm-hmm.
and it turns out well because of the LiDAR helping out with when something's close in.
Yeah.
So it definitely will help.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I wanted to get out there was that the night mode, portrait mode type of thing. And it's basically night mode and portrait mode working together at the same time. So that's pretty cool. The next point is edit and enhance. After capturing your photos, explore the editing features available on your iPhone. The Photos app offers basic editing tools like cropping, exposure, adjustments, color adjustments, and more. Additionally, consider using third-party editing apps like Lightroom Mobile, Snapseed, or Darkroom for more enhanced editing. And you know what, Dave? I think we should do a complete show on just the editing features of the Photos app. So I don't think we'll cover too much of it here, other than to say, you can auto enhance and let it use its AI and machine learning to give you what it thinks is the best result for the image. But
we'll also say that I wouldn't call what's available now basic editing anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
two or three versions of the operating system ago, basic editing. Now there's a ton of options down there.
Oh yeah.
Not as powerful as third party, but for the majority of people, powerful enough to do what you need to do.
I've basically developed my editing style using the Photos app. I use other things now like Darkroom or Raw Power or things like that, depending on the kind of edit I want to do. But I mean, I'm not afraid to just do it in the Photos app either, because I really like the way it renders things when I adjust those sliders. And if I was to have one tip, that would be play with each of those sliders and go from one extreme to the other to see what it does and how it behaves on your image. And that way you'll know what you want to do and how far you want to take it. But don't be afraid to experiment. I'm okay. So this section is called edit and enhance. And for me, I'm more of an enhancer than I am an editor. To me, editing is, kind of going to extremes to change the image to give it a real artistic look and feel and things like that. Whereas with what I do, I just tend to enhance it by making smaller adjustments to some of these things. And I certainly don't adjust everything, not all the time anyway. And that's basically my editing. So you're a fan of Lightroom Mobile, right?
Right. And just because I love the dehaze option.
Oh yeah.
It does such a good job. And it's available. You can use that. What I do is use the no cost version.
Yeah, same here.
So I don't, So I have occasionally thought about it because you can do video in Lightroom Mobile if you pay.
Okay.
And there's some additional layers that are available that you can do if you pay versus free. But for what I've done and what I do, the free version, it gives you that little extra ability, and also it edits raw, which the built-in camera app, built-in really doesn't do true raw editing.
Yeah, it just does basically Pro Raw. If you take a shot Pro Raw, it'll edit the Pro Raw. Yeah,
exactly. So,
and if you shoot an image in straight RAW in a third-party camera app, I think what you get if you go to develop it or edit it in Photos is the JPEG counterpart.
You get the JPEG, exactly, where Lightroom will do a regular RAW photo. So again, do you need to do it? No. I like to do it because of some of the looks I can get out of it and some of the additional features, but there are shots that I do that are just edited in the Photos app.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And they turn out great, especially if you and the one nice thing, and we'll talk about this more in editing. One thing they added with the last operating system update is the ability to copy and paste edits
Yes.
So if you take photos, let's say, like I took photos recently at the local Picklesburg festival they had.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all kind of similar lighting and, color and everything else. So all the photos were going to pretty much be edited very similar.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I can edit one, get how it looks, go to the upper right, copy, select a bunch of photos, paste edit, and it changes all of them.
Yeah,
and then if there's one
cool.
or two, like, I didn't like the way that edit worked on this one because it was, I can go and edit that too. No big deal.
Yeah. Yep. And and you might as well say in the Photos app, you can edit videos.
Yeah.
With the same
option. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is new. Which is new from the last 2 years or so.
Yeah.
Because before so that's
that, your color contrast, all that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but I think that's good for a show on its own is editing.
Oh, yeah.
Even with just the Photos app, we can probably go through all those things and give a lot better detail of what they do. And that could be a show of its own. So I think we'll do that sometime. So basically that's the last one. So to tie it up, it says, remember to practice and experiment with these features in different scenarios and lighting conditions. Each iPhone model may have different camera capabilities, so familiarize yourself with the specific features available on your device. By exploring and utilizing the camera features of your iPhone, you can expand your creative possibilities and capture stunning images. So that's the Apple camera. I think we covered just about everything. Now, okay, so I'm on the beta for iOS 17. Right. And something that I've discovered, and I think I've told you about this already, Dave, is that you can turn on a level indicator. So it's not there all the time, but it only pops up when say you're trying to hold your phone level, it'll show up. It'll show up when you're almost level, and then when you get to that level, it turns yellow for a second, then disappears. But if you tilt your phone again, it comes back. If you go too far, like if I look at me, Dave.
Okay.
Dave could see this. Now at that point, it disappears.
Oh, okay.
So now it's coming back, and
I'm
holding my phone at about.
It's only when you're close.
Yeah, you got to be pretty close to level, and so it just helps you get it level. So then, bang, it's yellow and it disappears, and then. So it's really handy for getting a level horizon. I mean, I'm bad for being the horizon line police when I look at images, but I mean, you can tilt your images to be for an artistic reason, and that's fine. But I'm just a level horizon guy. But so that's one of the things, and the other thing is that something that you asked me about today, Dave, and that was when I've got an image open in Photos, and let's see here. So if I zoom in with my fingers, next thing you know, I see in the top right-hand corner, crop. And that's all that's on the screen is the zoomed in image, but it says crop. And if you leave it for too long, it'll disappear. But what that could do is if I hit that, it'll crop the image to the wallpaper ratio. And you can actually make a wallpaper out of it. And then, I mean, of course, you could still go further with your editing, but and then all of a sudden, it's like I'm just in the photos. I'm a photo viewer or whatever, and when I zoom in, if I hit that crop button, now I'm in the editing suite.
Oh,
so
nice.
It's
keeping you an extra step or two.
Yeah, so I can continue editing in any way I want, or you could just cancel to get back out of it and discard the changes. So that's something that's new, like for iOS 17. And other than that, I haven't seen anything new that I can think of. I mean, they make such subtle changes in the camera app and the editing suite.
Plus, there will be things added. If there is, assuming that there is the periscope lens comes out, there'll be something they'll throw in.
Yeah, I'm sure
they're going to throw in something where it'll be, oh, and by the way, because of the new, like when night mode was announced.
Yeah.
That wasn't in the iOS update because the hardware wasn't there yet.
Right.
But when the hardware was there, they all of a sudden they could push out that last minute update of the operating system and say, by the way, just click the button here.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see if with the periscope lens, if they're still assuming it's there, they'll still keep the 0.5, 1, 2, 3, and 6, let's say.
Yeah.
Because at this point, we're getting a little bit much for the built-in camera app for its options. Apple normally doesn't like to say, oh, here's 6 different zoom levels.
Well, they may just take the 3 out and put it to 6.
True.
And because then you'll have the option to go down from that and still be optical, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see.
Most definitely.
So, well, I guess that's good enough for this one.
Yep.
So that's basically the iPhone Apple camera features, and I think we've hit everything. And again, so we'll cover more editing stuff in another show sometime.
Oh, yeah.
So just, I guess, tell everybody where they can find you.
Sure, you can find me on most social media as ProfPod, on TikTok as ProfPodPGH, and on Facebook as Dave Podner Jr.
Alrighty, and you can find me on Instagram at Macmillan Photo. The same thing on Threads, I guess. You can find me on, is it Twitter or is it X?
It's X now. It is X.
It is X now. So you can find me on X at Macmillan_photo, and Glass at Greg, Vero at Macmillan. I got too many different names, but I should be more like Dave and have one name across everything. But anyway, so basically about.me/Macmillan. You can find all my links there. And well, thanks, Dave. It was another well-informed and educational discussion, I think. And
always fun.
Yeah. And I guess we'll see everybody on the next one.
Have a great one, everyone.